When it comes to Chinese takeout, the #1 main I always order is Mongolian beef, followed closely by chicken lettuce wraps and beef and broccoli. But today, I'm gonna show you how to make this Mongolian beef at home, and trust me when I say that it will rival your local P.F. Chang's or other Chinese restaurant. It's also shockingly easy to make. I think it might surprise you, and I personally just love that sticky, sweet, and savory sauce. So next time you're craving Chinese takeout, you don't actually have to go out, you can stay in and make it at home. We'll start by making the sauce for the Mongolian beef, and that includes 1/2 cup of tamari soy sauce, 1/3 cup of coconut sugar, and I'll talk about sugar alternatives at the end of the video, 1/4 cup water, 2 teaspoons sesame oil, 1 teaspoon blackstrap molasses, 1 teaspoon freshly minced ginger, and 4 garlic cloves that have been finely chopped. And I do prefer finely chopped rather than minced garlic in this recipe so that the garlic doesn't burn with the high heat in the wok. And once that's all stirred together, you can set it aside. You can also go ahead and slice up 3 green onions. This recipe moves really quickly when it's on the stove, so it's best to prep everything ahead of time. And I like to slice the green onions larger and on a diagonal, but you could slice them straight across as well. And then for the main ingredient, you'll need 1 pound of flank steak. Mine is much bigger at about 2 pounds today, so I'll only use half of this for the Mongolian beef, but I'll go ahead and slice up the whole thing. You'll also notice the direction that the fibers are running on the flank steak, and you'll want to make sure that you slice against this for tender cuts of meat. Slice the meat about 1/4 inch thick, and if you find that the steak is really wide, as mine is today, you can slice it down the middle to create 2 halves. This also helps to create more bite-sized pieces rather than really long pieces of meat, which are just harder to eat at the end. And for inquiring minds, because I'm sure I'll get this question in the comments, I ended up making my steak fajitas recipe with the leftover flank steak. So if you too can only get a larger flank steak at the market, now you know what to make with the leftover meat. One last comment I'll make as I'm slicing up the meat is that I specifically created a Mongolian beef recipe that was quick and easy. Other recipes might have you brining the steak overnight because P.F. Chang's does that, but I found that the difference was negligible and not worth the added time. My goal was to get that restaurant flavor, but without the work that restaurants often go to when they're making extra large batches. So after your steak is all sliced up, add it to a large bowl and then sprinkle 1/4 cup of cornstarch on top. Use your hands or tongs to toss the meat and cornstarch together, making sure that each individual piece of meat is fully coated. And as you continue to toss, you'll notice that the cornstarch absorbs into the meat a bit, and that's exactly what you want. So now that you've got everything prepped, it's time to get cooking. Heat a large wok or pan over medium-high heat. And if you've watched my recent fried rice recipe, you know that I love this wok. And I'll link it again below in the description box for you. But if you don't have a wok, you can certainly make this in a large stainless steel or cast iron pan. Add about 2 tablespoons of a high heat oil like avocado oil and add the meat in a single layer in the wok. I'm actually going to show you 2 ways to cook the meat, and the first way is to add the meat in batches to the pan in a single layer, then cook it for about 30 seconds to a minute until it starts to get crispy. Once it's crispy, flip it over and cook the other side for another 30 seconds to a minute. Cooking the meat in batches means that your pan doesn't cool down as much and the oil can stay nice and hot so that the meat gets those crispy edges. Again, some recipes will have you deep frying the meat in a couple quarts of oil because that's how restaurants do it. But I am not a restaurant. I am a home cook and one who is looking to get this meal on the table quickly and without wasting a bunch of oil. And as you can see, my pieces get perfectly crispy with just a couple tablespoons of oil. You'll repeat this process with another batch of meat, and if you do find that your pan is getting a little dry, just add a splash more oil as needed. So that was one way to cook the meat, and probably the method you'll prefer if you're using a pan rather than a wok. But if you do have a wok, you can simply add the meat in batches by dumping it in, then using your wok spatula to toss the meat around for a couple of minutes until it's nice and crispy on the outside. This is my preferred method in the wok, though it is a bit harder to toss the meat around if you are using a pan. But no matter which method you use, once your meat is cooked, remove it to a plate and set it aside. Add the sauce to the wok, reduce the heat to medium, and let it simmer for about 4 to 5 minutes, giving it a stir every once in a while until it's slightly thickened. The sauce will also pick up some of the remnant cornstarch that was in the pan, helping it to thicken up as it continues to reduce, especially when the meat is added back in. So add the steak back to the wok and stir it with the sauce for a minute or two. And you'll notice that the sauce will continue to reduce further, thickening up into that gorgeous glaze that coats the meat. Toss in the green onions that you sliced up, give the Mongolian beef a couple more stirs, and then you are done, my friends. This P.F. Chang's copycat has that deep, rich color, glossy glaze, and robust flavor that we all know and love, and I personally love that it can be made in about 30 minutes. You can serve this up a variety of ways, and I have a few tips on the blog post for you, but today I'm serving it up over some white rice. So I'll go ahead and add a portion of rice to a plate, and then top it with a generous helping of the Mongolian beef. I find myself always going back for seconds on this recipe, so today I just piled about a double portion size on my plate. Once you make this recipe at home, you'll understand just how deliciously addictive it is. Your kitchen will smell like a Chinese restaurant in the best way possible, and I, for one, cannot wait to dig into this right now. Today we somehow managed to time it absolutely perfect because it is 12:30 and lunchtime, and now I get a delicious lunch. I am not the best at chopsticks though, so let's see if we can do this. So good. The sauce is thick and sweet. It's like sticky sweet and savory from the garlic and the ginger. And the texture of the sauce, you can always cook it a little bit more, cook it a little bit less if you like the sauce thinner or looser or thicker and sticky. I also wanted to talk about the sauce because at the beginning we were going so fast. But many of you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, that I do not use processed sugar in my recipes, and brown sugar is simply white sugar with molasses. So what I do is I swap in the coconut sugar and add a little bit more of the molasses to essentially make my version of brown sugar. But as always, you guys know that there's no judgment from me, so if you would prefer to use brown sugar, you can use brown sugar to replace the coconut sugar plus molasses. I've also seen some recipes out there that add more cornstarch to the sauce as it is simmering, but I genuinely do not think it is needed. As you can see, the sauce thickens up beautifully all on its own, just from the little bit of remnant cornstarch that is on the meat from when it fries. I have a friend who is also Chinese, and she said, don't forget to put sesame oil in the sauce. And that is definitely what gives the sauce on the meat that really shiny, sheen, mirror-like glaze. So the sesame oil is definitely needed also. I also served this up on rice today, but you could also do rice noodles. You could do some garlic sauteed vegetables, whether that's green beans or spinach or bok choy, lots of options. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And after you make this, don't forget to tag me on social media, as I always love to see. And then on the website, make sure to give it a 5-star review, as that's always a good sign to others that you enjoyed the recipe. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.